Woo. Ah, see him a beast when you hear that sound like. Ah, yeah, beat on the beat when you hear that sound like. Woo. Yeah, bitch, I'm the champ, only need one round like. Ha. Yeah, me, I'm a G-Ring, he in the sound like.
Mike Owens here, joined today by Grant Dawson, who returns to action in just over 2 weeks' time. He'll be facing Bobby Green in his career first UFC main event. Grant, always a pleasure, my man. How are things for you today?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on the show again.
100%. I think you spoke a little bit off camera and you talked about there's a lot going on right now. Has your first camp as a main eventer felt any different to previous ones?
I wouldn't say it's felt any different. We've done a couple of things differently. Just the extra rounds. I'm a big believer in however many rounds you're doing, that's how many rounds you should train for. So if you're doing 3 rounds, I don't like doing 5. I like doing 3 so that I can give 100% in those 3 rounds and not have to save energy for the 5 when I know it's not going to be in a fight. But when I'm doing a fight, I like a fight for 5. I want to train 5 rounds so so I know exactly how much energy to give during the fight.
Do you feel like your style, do you feel like it will translate well to having those extra 2 rounds?
I do. I think 5 rounds helps me more than it helps Bobby Green. I'm not expecting him to necessarily slow down a bunch, but I just feel like I'm used to wrestling for 25 minutes. I don't think he's used to wrestling for 25 minutes. So if I can get him in scrambles early, I think that's what's going to be the difference later on in the rounds.
What was your reaction to being told that the fight would be the main event of this card?
I mean, it was pretty quick. It was like, hey, there's a spot for you and Jalin Turner to fight in the main event. I said yes. I think that Jalin wants the fight. I just think he can't make the weight on that short of notice, which is totally understandable. And so they put in Bobby Green, and I was just super excited about it because I'm fighting a big name in my first main event in the UFC at the Apex, where I feel the most at home. I absolutely love everything about what is going on with me right now.
Listen, a lot of fighters have a lot of different opinions on the kind of the gravity of your first main event. Does this have a big level of significance for you, or do you just look at it as another fight?
No, man, listen, when I got into this sport, I said that I was going to be a world champion. And when UFC world champion is the goal, main events are a part of it. Getting signed to the UFC, that's a part of it. I was on the Contender Series. I got a contract. It just felt right. The only time I kind of like really took a step back and was like, holy shit, was in my UFC debut. I was getting ready to fight and I looked at my glove and it said UFC on it. And I was just like, holy shit, like we made it. Long way to go. Let's not screw this up. So I feel comfortable going into it. Honestly, like, the nerves are there just like any other fight it would be. It's not too bad. It's not too good. Like I think I'm right where I need to be.
It's also a statement from the UFC that they feel you're comfortable enough with you being the main event. I always think it's when a fighter gets that first main event, it's a show of kind of loyalty and respect from the UFC that they warrant you that position. Do you feel like that at all, or once again, do you just are all these questions that you're likely being asked in all these interviews, are they all just pale into significance?
No, I think in my last fight they gave me a real test. They gave me
Mm.
Damir Ismagulov, 24-2. What an incredible record. Had a very close fight with Arman Sarukian, and they put me in the co-main event. I think that was my test. And when I passed that test with flying colors, they said, okay, Grant's somebody that we can count on, that we can put him in a main event against a big name, and he's going to come in and still do his thing. So I definitely think they're, in a way, rewarding me for my last fight, which I really appreciate. And now it's my job to go in there and make sure that they're not disappointed with what they gave me.
Yeah, 100%. Well, if we talk about the style matchup, as we mentioned, you're facing Bobby Green in just under 2 weeks' time. Would it be fair to say this is a classic striker versus grappler?
I would say so. I think that you don't see as much of that anymore because everybody's really well rounded. I think Bobby can wrestle just fine. I don't think he can wrestle as good as I can, but I think that he can wrestle just fine in the same way that I think I can strike just fine. Maybe I'm not as good at striking or boxing particularly as he is, but we both can we both can meet each other in our strong areas and still have success. If I can't get the takedown, he's not going to blow me out of the water. I can still strike with him. I can still mix things up and get damage off. If I do get the takedown, I'm not just going to sub him real quick or ground and pound him real quick. He's going to be savvy to my game enough to be able to survive with me in that area. So I really do think this is really good MMA fighter versus really good MMA fighter.
And in terms of Bobby's striking style, he does have quite a unique style with the hands down low, with a lot of the head and the upper body movements. When you and your coaches are looking at this style matchup, what are the unique features that you feel like you have to plan for in Bobby Green's game?
Yeah.
Bobby Green's game.
Yeah, like you said, the hands are low. We have to get the hands up before we shoot. So a big part of that is going to be punching with our shots, not just shooting naked. A lot of it, too, is going to be kicking behind everything. I don't think that I want to get into a boxing match with Bobby Green. I don't think that goes well for me. So I need to make sure that this is a full-on mixed martial arts contest.
Yeah. I'm wondering if you feel like your last fight against Damir Ismagulov, it's almost the perfect progressive step to Bobby Green. You could argue that Tamir in some ways has got an more advanced boxing game than Bobby Green, but there are similarities in terms of the striking styles as you move over from your last fight against Ismagulov to your next against Green.
I agree. The difference is, though, is that Damir is much more traditional when it comes to his boxing. He's very jab, cross, left hook, slip, 2-3, very, very traditional when it comes to his boxing. Very good at it, too. Bobby, he's a lot less traditional. He throws a lot of backside, then lead side. He throws from his hips. He's not afraid to get into the pocket and kind of do that weird head stuff. So I would say that, it is another boxing matchup, but a very different style of boxing. I have to treat Bobby as his own person.
Yeah. Out of interest, is it easier or harder to prepare for someone with a unique style, or is it harder to prepare for someone with that more traditional style where you may be seeing it once or twice before, but there's the advanced level of it and the fact that they likely know what you're trying to come with to counter that. What's harder to prepare for?
I would say that it's harder to prepare for a unique style. When you've done MMA for a long time, any really good MMA fighter will tell you the person that they get hit by the most when sparring is a brand new person that doesn't know what they're supposed to do. So they just do whatever feels like doing. Those are the guys that you get hit by more because it's not like a straight punch hook. It's like a weird up punch, kick, spin, whatever. So dealing with those awkward styles definitely is a lot more difficult to deal with, especially because you don't have the training partners that can really mimic that very well. I do think that Bobby Green is going to hit me a little bit more than Damir did, but I don't think it's because he's better than Damir. I think it's because he's just a little bit more awkward and unique than Damir.
What did you make of Bobby's last win over Tony Ferguson?
Fantastic. I thought he looked really good. I thought he looked really, really good. And he showed in that fight that he can grapple. He showed in that fight that he can get submissions. If I'm not on my A game, I think I could have a night looking like Tony where the striker submits the grappler. So that's not going to happen. I've got all the pressure on my shoulders, just how I like it. And I think I'm going to go in there with all the respect for Bobby, and I'm going to blow him out of the water respectfully.
100%. Well, as you mentioned there, I know that the original matchup was meant to be the Jalin Turner fight. I believe he's ranked either 1 or 2 above or below you, if memory serves. But as you can obviously see with this fight, Bobby Green's currently unranked, so it could be argued that you're putting more on the line in terms of your ranking in the top 10 in the division. So I'd like to ask, what is the biggest thing you feel like you gain with a win over Bobby Green?
I mean, I don't believe in rankings. I think the only rank that matters is the number 1 ranking. We've seen guys, I can pull names out where guys in their UFC debut fight the champion. So it doesn't really matter about rankings to me. Fighting is fighting. Islam Makhachev got a title shot off of beating Bobby Green. Now, he was supposed to fight RDA, and RDA had to back out, and Bobby Green, being the man that he is, stood up on short notice and said, I'll take that fight. Anything can happen in this sport. We just saw Fiziev lose to Gamrot due to knee injury. He could be out for 3 years for all we know. The division is so strange, and it's changing all the time. I promise that the top 15 right now will be different by the beginning of 2024 than it is right now. So anything can happen. I don't really care about, what rank they are. I think the only thing that matters is winning. Bobby Green is a big name, and this is what I said I wanted. I wanted a big name or a big rank, and I got the big name, and I think a win over him puts me up a couple of steps.
Yeah. Point you mentioned there as well is interesting about the lightweight division and the turnover, because after the last night's main event between Fiziev and Gamrot, there's nobody matched up ahead of you other than the champion and the challenger in Islam and Charles next month. Everyone else from 1 to 9 is now currently unbooked. So what are your current opinions on the UFC lightweight division? Do you think it's in a healthy spot? Do you think what's your overall opinion on it?
I think it's in a great spot right now. I think you're finally seeing those top guys start to fight outside of the top guys.
Mm.
You know, you got Gamrot and Fiziev that just fought. You got Fiziev fought Gaethje. You had I don't know if this is set yet. I believe this is the fight they're trying to make is Arman versus Dariush. So you finally have those top guys starting to fight the guys that are a little bit behind them, which is absolutely fantastic for the sport. Nobody matters to me other than Bobby Green. However, I would like to fight either Jalin Turner or Dan Hooker after, assuming that my fight with Bobby Green goes the way that I hope it goes.
Yeah, 100%. Just out of interest, because we did mention it, obviously the Raphael Fiziev Mateusz Gamrot fight didn't end how everybody wanted, including probably Mateusz Gamrot, who I know is a teammate of yours. What can you kind of take from those 1.5 rounds? Can you look at that and take anything from it, or is it in a lot of ways a no contest?
No, absolutely not. I had Gamrot winning the fight. I know it was early, but I had Gamrot winning the fight up until then. I thought he looked really good. My advice to Fiziev would be slow down a little bit. I think his style is so hectic and crazy that his own body can't keep up with how fast he is. I definitely think that opens up the division as well. Like I think that Fiziev will be out for a little bit, so he'll get put down a little bit lower. And I think that Gamrot is going to get what he deserves. I think that he's going to get Charles Oliveira or maybe even a Justin Gaethje if things go. That's what's so crazy about this sport is you never know who you're going to fight. I just beat Demir. Now I'm fighting Bobby. Would anybody be like shocked out of their mind if a short notice thing happened and I had to step in to fight Islam? Like this sport is so crazy and this sport is so nuts and anything can happen on any given day. Joe Soto made his UFC debut against TJ Dillashaw for the belt because somebody missed weight and had to go to the hospital on that card. Like anything can happen. So the number one thing for me is just to continue winning and to continue getting better every single day in the gym.
Not to ask a kind of personal or difficult question, but I just saw it a couple of days ago that Ian Gary and Vicente Luque have been booked to fight, and they both train out to Kill Cliff FC. If the UFC presented it to you, would you fight teammate Mateusz Gamrot, or is that off the table?
That would depend on two things. It would if it's just a fight, probably not. If they're like, hey, the winner gets a belt, no matter what, the winner gets the next shot at the title. And if Gamrot was like, look, I'm cool with it. If you're cool with it, then yeah, sure. Yeah. Gamrot's the type of guy that I think that we could fight and still be friends afterward. There are guys that I absolutely do not want to fight. I don't want to fight Moicano. I don't want to fight. I will not fight my boy Thiago Moises. Like that's just off the table. We're too close. Like forget about it. But there are guys, Arman Tsarukyan and Gamrot. I think that we could all be cool afterward, and I don't think there'd be any hard feelings. But it would depend on the circumstances. Yeah. It has to be something big on the line.
Yeah, no, 100%. You mentioned the title fight there between Islam and Charles. Just your thoughts on who you see taking that one in the rematch in Abu Dhabi.
The short answer is Islam will beat Charles again. The long answer is this is going to be a much more competitive fight because there's a lot less unknown to Charles. Charles was going into the first fight saying, oh my goodness, is he as strong as everybody says? Is he as good as everybody says? Now he's got that familiarity and he can go in there and perform a little bit better. I do think Islam will still win. I think this is going to be a lot closer of a fight.
Look, obviously your focus is on Bobby Green in 2 weeks' time, but I'm sure as you climb these ranks, the thought of the champion is in your mind, and obviously there's a little party that was in some ways looking forward to that eventual fight should it happen. When you look at a fighter like Islam Makhachev, what do you feel are the keys to victory over him? What would you have to feel, whether it be yourself or whether it be anybody? What would be the keys that somebody would have to implement to get the job done?
I think that one, Islam Makhachev is never far from my mind. I don't think Islam Makhachev knows who I am, but I definitely know who he is, and I've been preparing to fight him ever since, Khabib's little brother got signed. So I think that I definitely have the style that can beat Islam Makhachev, we've seen when people engage the wrestling with him, they tend to do better. The three guys that did the best with Islam Makhachev were Arman Sarukian, my teammate Thiago Moises, and the champion Volkanovski. They all did the best with him because they were willing to engage with the wrestling. I believe all three of them got takedowns on Islam Makhachev and could not hold him down. I am somebody that if you give me one takedown, I bank that round. You lose that round or I take your neck. It's one of those two options. Yeah. So for me, when I get into this fight with Islam Makhachev, which is going to happen someday, not shying away from my game, not saying, well, I'm not going to wrestle because he's good at wrestling. I'm going to try to strike with him. Play my game, get into those wrestling scrambles, and let's find out who the better wrestler is.
I love it. We'll turn the conversation back to the fight at hand. That's obviously the focus right now going in, just as I mentioned, under 2 weeks to go. What I'd like you to do, Grant, is can you give me a walkthrough of the perfect fight day? So what happens when you wake up in the morning to when you go to sleep at night in a perfect world?
Man, I wake up in the morning, I take a quick shower, I shave my head, clean myself up, make sure I look good, and then we go eat breakfast. We love going, especially in Vegas. I love fighting in Vegas because I got everything down to the routine. We're gonna go to the Broken Yoke. We're gonna I get this. Oh man, I'm getting so hungry. French toast with bacon and sprinkled sugar on top of it. A couple of poached eggs. I'm so hungry. That's delicious. Eat that. I usually have a pretty big lunch, and then I'll usually sneak in a zebra cake or two, maybe a Kit Kat bar, just to make me feel good. And then I like to go lighter throughout the day. Get to the venue, warm up, and honestly just hang out. I think last time I was the co-main event, so the fights were on way before I even went to the venue. We were watching the fights. We ended up all fight week watching Maze Runner, the trilogy of Maze Runner. So we finished that up the day of. I think this week not this week, but this fight we're gonna watch The Hunger Games. Get those 3 movies done, or maybe there's 4. I can't remember. Get those done throughout the week. Probably watch the last one on fight day, and then go in and do my thing, man. I think the biggest thing is just to not make something it's not. Yeah. This is the exact same thing. I'm fighting. That's it. If Bobby Green shows up to my house door and knocks on it and says that this is his house now, I gotta fight him. So that's all it is.
I love it. Well, look, Grant, it's great to see you in this position in just under a couple of weeks' time to see this first main event. Thank you as always for the time, and I wish you the best of luck for the fight.
I appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on again.